Okay, good evening, everyone. We are broadcasting live from SS Media. Today, we brought you your interesting discussion or program that is under our education system. Today, we'll be talking about an interesting topic that is the late introduction of civic education in our educational system. Today, with me here, I have two students from Masful Senior Secondary School, and they will be with me here to discuss about interesting topic that is the late introduction of civic education in our education system. And I will like or love to give them mic to introduce themselves for the wonderful viewers and the audience.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ramatullah Bijalo, a student of Masro Senior Secondary School, and I am a poetess and an actress. And I am glad to be here, and inshallah, we will give the best that you guys will be expecting. Just sit and watch and learn from it.
That's wonderful introduction from Ramatullah B. Jallo from Masrul Senior Secondary School. Sister, can you please introduce yourself to the listeners or
Assalamu
the
alaikum
audience?
everyone. My name is Binta Jeswar, a student of Masuru Senior Secondary School. I am very glad to be in front of you guys and here you can oh my god.
That's wonderful from J. Shuare. Today we have two students from Masful Senior Secondary School that we will go through the discussion. First of all, we have a topic or a theme that is very interesting. That is the late introduction of civic education in our education system. And they will be here today to teach us or to enlighten us or to orient us about what is civic education and what are the causes of the late introduction of civic education and what are the impact or the effect of civic education in our education system. B. Jallo, what do you mean by civic education at first?
Okay, civic education is the educational system or time in which people are educated about their political rights and regulations and the way they should behave in the society and their citizens or rulers. This is what civic education means.
That's very important. Civic education is what guides us in our daily life. It simply means civic education is what guides in our daily life. Joshua, our next question also will be imposed on you. Our team is centered on the late introduction of civic education. Do you agree that civic education is lately introduced in the Gambia?
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
that civic education is need to introduce in our education system. Because if you look at it, most of our leaders they don't understand what civic means, and most of them believe in their these various calculation subjects, and most of them believe in their scientific, but they lack this understanding that everything that we are doing is based on civic education. And the problem is that most of our leaders they don't consider civic education that much according to the way they will be solving problems in our society. And the government is late to introduce civic education because if you look at the way our leaders are, the way they are making, the way they are making solving problems in our society, it's very it's very difficult because if you look at the situation of the things, civic education will teach one the will teach one how to behave in society and how to solve problems between people, and it will also help an individual how they will correct others in the society. But if the leaders fail to understand this concept, of course, to me the government is late to bring civic education in our educational system because some of them they believe what they believe and what civic education is trying to emphasize on. Some of them they don't even believe in that and they don't go by those rules. So if government brings this civic education at the right time, some of the problems or challenges that we are facing today, we will not face those challenges. Yeah.
That's wonderful. If government brought civic education at the right time, some of the problem that we are facing, we will not face that one right now because she believes that government bring civic education lately, and that also contribute toward some of our leaders believing that calculation subjects are more important than civic education. And she also stated that civic education values our leaders are not following that. B. Jalla, our next question will be: do you think that our political culture or our political behavior was affected by the late introduction of civic education?
Okay, like it is affected because of the late introduction of civic education, basically because if at all they were aware of the rules and regulation of civic education or the way of ruling in civic education, it would have been easier for them. But someone that is not enlightened about the political culture and tradition of a nation or continent in large, it will be difficult for the person to rule a nation. So that being the case, if at all civic education was introduced earlier before, it would have been easy for them to have the idea, the ideology in terms of leading, not leading just because in a plutocracy form, leading in a way that they lead just for their personal interest instead of the interest of the citizens. Because all of this is stated in the civical education that we learn.
That's wonderful. If civic education was introduced before and the political culture was or will be shaped, because the political culture is the behavior of the people based on their political system. If the leaders are being enlightened or oriented about the values of civic education, they will lead based on the values of civic education. Joshua, do you think that political apathy also is a leading factor toward the introduction of civic education, or the masses political apathy was lead to the late introduction of civic education?
Because if you look at most of our people in the society, they believe that some of them believe that these political parties are useless because they thought that the government is only interested in their pocket. And most of them believe that if you select an individual to be your leader, the person will forget the the people that vote for them. But instead of thinking about himself. So if you look at that one, me what I believe is that those people that have those concepts because of civic education is late to be introduced. Because if everybody understand what civic education means, I think this is something that everybody has to know what has to know what it takes for an individual to know the values and to know how the civic education will help people to vote or to select their leaders.
Yes, of course. That's wonderful. She also stated that civic education was lately introduced. That also lead to masses political apathy in the system, because the people that are out there lack the knowledge of civic education. That's why they are learning from taking part in political participation. Our other question also will be posed on Bijala. Bijala, do you think that the laziness and lackadaisical attitude was also due to the late introduction of civic education in the Gambia?
As it is said that people respond on to things based on the motivation or aspiration that they have for it. So I believe if you see leaders are misleading us, the citizens, is because they lack the civic educational system, the civic education. Because if you check right now, there are so many hospitals that we enter that are government hospitals. If you go to the hospital and the nurses will be busy sitting on their phones or other things and not helping the patients. You think all of this is because the people that are there, the patients, I mean, don't know their rights. They are not educated about their rights. It is their right to go to the hospital. It is their right to have good health. So if they go to the hospital, it's the right of the nurses to treat them. So how can the nurses sit and not treat them? It means that they don't have the civic education. They don't know their rights and wrongs, as it is stated in the constitution of the nation. It is part of people's health to be taken care of. And if the government can post you there to take care of the people and you are there busy doing something, it's because you don't know, or the people you are living with don't know their rights, that they cannot show you to indicate or rectify you that what you're doing is wrong. I don't know if you are trying to understand this. You see where it's coming from. Like they lack the civic education. That's why they are maltreating people. And people are being maltreated. So that being the case, if at all civic education was introduced earlier in those people's school life, they would have been aware of their rights and wrongs. And if they are aware of their rights and wrongs and their responsibilities, they would have treated the people well. So that means that if you see people's laziness and lackadaisia is much in the nation, is because of they lack the civic education. And all of this is because civic was lately introduced in the Gambia.
Yeah, she agreed that lackadaisical attitude and laziness also was due to the late introduction of civic education. She also take a reference from our public hospital, that is the nurse and the doctors, because of their laziness and lackadaisical attitude toward their professionals also led or due to the late introduction of civic education. Because if they were oriented or sensitized about the values of civic education and the principles of civic education, they will attend the patients at the right time. Joshua, do you think that our norms or our societal norms and values are fading away because of the late introduction of civic education?
Yes, if you look at our generation and if you look at our society nowadays, many children believe in the way the Europeans behave and they tend to forget the rights and their norms and the values. Some of them will believe that doing some of the things that the Europeans believe will help us because of what? They lack the knowledge of civic education. They lack their values and they lack this knowledge on civic education about their values and their rights and duties. Though that is caused because the government is late to introduce civic education. If the civic education is introduced at the right times, those problems right now will not be faced by the society because everybody will know what your rights are and what your duties are to you, to yourself, and to people, and even towards government because they say right goes with responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right goes with responsibility. She also take a reference that if the government introduce civic education at an early age, the norms and values that are fading away would not be fading away because the children will learn their norms and values based on the geographical location that they are living in. B Jallo, do you think that we are lacking writers, or what are the causes of the late introduction of civic education? Are we lacking writers, or what?
Lacking writers and having writers that are not supported are two different things. So I believe that we have writers in the nation, but the writers lack support from the nation. If I say the nation, I'm talking about everyone. Because if we say the government, we mean everyone. The citizen are the government, and the government are the citizen. So if I say like we lack the support from the nation, I simply mean that those writers that are writing in this nation, we have great writers here, but they write and that those books or things that they write are not respected and supported by the nation. If those things are not supported, like for example, if you check our educational system right now, all our books that we use in the schools, I can guarantee that 99% of the books that we use in our schools are exported. Most of them are written in Nigeria or other countries. Is it the fact being that we don't have writers, or is it that the writers that are here are writing, but yet still they are not supported? There, I can take reference to my former school, whereas I have a teacher who wrote his own book. The book is written, he published it, but schools refuse to use those books, and those books that he wrote is under integrated and something like that, SES. Those books are talking about our own culture in our own nation. How can we let people outside the nation to write our culture for us? Do we think that makes sense? So that being the case, I think if we have the writers, which we have, the support is what they lack. So that does not give any excuse for the government to say that that's why the introduction of civic was late, because we have the writers, it's support that they lack. If the writers write and the nation support them by introducing the books to the schools, giving the schools the right to use those books and setting exams based on those books, it will be easy. We don't need to be importing books. We can't import books that are written by other people and learn from it and expect us to change from it. We need to learn from the society and see our wrongs and rectify them by ourselves, not anyone else. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, that's very wonderful. That is very wonderful, remarkable at that moment for so. She said that we are not lacking writers, we are having writers, but they are not having support from the government or any other societal enterprises. They are not having support because she take and reference that her teacher or his teacher also wrote a book that is integrated studies and SES, whereby they don't support, or the government or the Minister of Education did not allow those books to be published in our education system. And she also stated that the books that we supposed to write as a civic education should be centered on our cultural behavior in our society, or should be based on the societal values that we are learning. Binta J. do you think that the scandalous attitudes and the corruption is due to the late introduction of civic education?
Yes. If you look at our society nowadays, especially if you look at those that are in power now,
Okay.
most of them believe in their pockets than what the citizen needs. Because if you look at it, most of them, every day, can you imagine, you will be going home with $1,000. You will be going home with 10,000. Where did you get that? Is it that every day when they are going home, the government will pay them? No, the government did not used to pay them every day when they are going home. But because of corruption, all of them when they are going home, some people will be going with hundreds of dollars. So where did they get that money from? Is it not from our accounts? Because of those people, they lack the values and the honesty that civic education teaches. But if they have the value that and they have the belief that civic education, this is what it teaches us, the honesty, trustworthiness, those things, if they have those beliefs, I believe this corruption and others will not happen. So I believe that corruption is many in our society because of the late introduction of civic education in our educational system.
That's wonderful. She believed that the late introduction of civic education also was due, also contribute towards scandalous and corruption activities. With that, we will go for short break. Then we will come back and continue with the interesting discussion with the Musrul students.
Welcome to Soninkara Technology, your one-stop solution for electronic and phone repair services. We understand how important your devices are in today's fast-paced world. And our expert technicians are here to ensure your gadgets are up and running in no time. Welcome to Soninkara Technology, your one-stop solution for electronic and phone repair services. We understand how important your devices are in today's fast-paced world. And our expert technicians are here to ensure your gadgets are up and running in no time.
Welcome back from that short break. We are still on the process with the Musrul students. Still now we are on the team that is the late introduction of civic education in our education system. Now the other thing that will go on is deep introduction of civic education, and what are the importance of civic education, and what are the lack or the effect if civic education was not part of the system of the citizens. Now Bijallo, can you please give us a preamble or introduction of civic education deeply?
Okay, civic education is a subject or is yeah a subject that consists of all other subjects in the syllabus of senior secondary school, and that being the case, it means that civic consists of history, present, and even future, because it trains your behavior. In that being the case, it is training you for the future. Talk about you for the about the past, talk with you about the past, the present, and the future. That being the case, it means that it consists of history, and it also talk about the politician of nation. If that if civic talk about the politic of a nation, then in that being the case, it's in a governmental term. It's second in a governmental term. But I cannot, if I take the time to talk about all the subjects that are involved in civic, I will spend all the time in just the subject. But before we do that, I would like to tell you what civics exactly mean. People live in a geographical area. You cannot rule hundreds of people, millions, without rules and regulations. And people that live with rules and regulations live with responsibilities. So, that being the case, if civic is not introduced into a nation, people are not ruled with rules and regulations or by rules and regulations. How do you expect those people to be in a place that is united, peaceful? So, in that being the case, civic is something that elaborates more on people's behavior in a way that not only how to behave, but with a good manner. Civic talk about honesty, dishonesty. In this being the case, it means that civic talk about a lot. So that being the case, if civic is introduced early in a nation, I can guarantee that in the next 5 to 10 years, the Gambia will not be the way it is now. As we, the youths, are being educated about civic education, which might enlighten our thinking ideology, our thinking IQ, our way of life, which might change. That is why when civic is introduced, especially in the early days, it would have been better than this. But since it is not done and we are here now to talk about it, I think we should try our level best and participate in it, not just for the sake of passing, because we students read for passing, but not that being the case. We should participate on it, not only about passing, but making our lives through it, learning from it, making use of it, as it teaches us about manner, behavior, political culture, political life. That being the case, it is something that we need to live with. So, in that being the case, I would like to allow her to talk about the importance of civic education before I consume all the time.
Yeah, that is wonderful preamble of civic education, because civic education is talking about all the things that surround us. Is daily life. Anything that you do in your daily life is considered as civic education, because it's something that is shaping the life of the citizen in their geographical location, a place where they live, whatever they live with. Concern about civic education. Jishwara, can you take us through the importance of civic education?
Okay, Usman. When we talk about here the importance of civic education, one we can say civic education teaches an individual his rights and responsibility as a citizen of a country, and also we can say civic education teach an individual what they my God, it teaches an individual what your rights are towards others and what your rights are towards the government. When we say government have rights, and also when your right is given to you, you also have a responsibility. Civic is important because it teaches one the right towards the others and the right towards the government and your duties. And also civic education teach the society the values and the behavior. It teach one the honesty and your dishonesties. And civic education also is very important because it teaches us how to behave in society, and also in it teaches us how to behave in society and world at large. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. Civic education is very essential in our daily life, because it also teach people their responsibility that they owe for the government and what government owe for them. That's all what we have from Binta Jeswar. Now, Bijallo, what are your advice to all the people that are doing civic and others that are doing civic but they are not taking it seriously?
I don't know if you have heard, but when I was talking about the civic education itself, I did mention of us learning it not for the sake of passing our exams or coming out with good results, but for us to make use of it. We students, most of the times, we put pressure on ourselves when it is time for exam. So we read for the sake of passing, not for the sake of using it. But that shouldn't be the case. As we all know that, as it is stated, that civic is our way of life. We are living with it, and we need to live with it. And if you are living with a bad manner, it means that you don't have a good living. It deals with everyone's standards of living. So that being the case, I don't think we should be taking civic as something that shouldn't be handled. We are the future leaders. We are the future generation. So that being the case, if we don't take civic serious, do you think that there will be any changes? There will be no changes. So that being the case, we shouldn't learn civic just for the sake of passing, but we should learn civic for our ways of life because it teaches us everything. It even touches the part of religion. So that being the case, we should learn civic for our way of life and our use, not for the sake of passing. That's what I have for everyone, that we should learn civic for the sake of our lives, not for the passing.
Yeah, civic education, we should learn it for the sake of our life, that will save our life in future, and it can also benefit the society or the future generation, because most of the students are learning civic education based on exams, because in practical aspect they will not do it, because teaching civic values, respecting people, honesty, trustworthy, and other things, whilst you are learning civic education and you are not having that in exam, you just go there and vomit all those things that are good, whilst you are not practicalizing all those values that civic education is teaching. Our final question will be posed on Binta Jeswara. Binta Jeswara also, can you have any advice or any things that you share with the people that are doing civic education?
Okay, if you look at our society now, many people tend to forget their value, and many people tend to ignore the rights and the duties that civic education will put into our daily activities, even our lives. So I think it's very important that students or even everybody, as far as you call yourself a human being, these rights and your responsibility is very important in your daily activities, because someone might even hurt you, you will not even know, and you might even hurt someone, you will not know you will not even know that you have violated someone's rights, and an individual will even hurt you, you will not know that this person violated my rights. So what I'm emphasizing on that, everybody should learn about civic education and know their rights and their values. So that if you can see, most of the problems that we are facing nowadays is because of we don't know our values and we don't know our rights and we don't know our duties. But civic education will teach oneself your rights and your duties. I think if civic education, if one have understanding on these things, it will be very easy for we to live as a nation, and we'll be able to achieve our aims and objectives. And in fact, the government in fact will even improve, because the corruption and others, they will all disappear. And yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful advice from Binta Jesware and Ramatulai B. Jallo. This advice goes to all the students that are doing civic education. This will take civic education seriously, because civic education is part of our daily life. As we just wake up from the bed, we go with civic education, and we come to bed, we sleep with civic education, because it's talking about the life of the people that are living in a particular place. Okay, this marks the end of our program. Before we close the program, we give them for them to give their closing remark to the audience. Please, my art student.
Okay, once again, my name is Ramatullah Abijal, a student of Masru Senior Secondary School, and I am an art student. Thank you all for your kind and wonderful attentions, and wish to see you soon, inshallah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's my field art student. Then we also have a commerce student that is with us here. Can you please?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum to you all. Okay, this marks the end of the program. Okay, I'm Binta Jeswari once again, and I'm a commerce student. You can see even our appearance or our words.
That's wonderful. We have the combination of commerce student and art student,
Yeah.
and this also marked the end of our program that we conducted every Tuesday. That comes to your way from SS Media. I'm your host Usman Jawara. Thank you.